launched last year, and my roles continue to evolve. So I started off as a panelist, which was a pretty significant role because I was sitting next to Jill Conrath. If you know Jill, she's like an icon. So my second role at the second DenamiCON was as a corporate sponsor, so that took a little less prep. I'm here today as MC of the show, and for those of you who think that the MC role is just pure fluff because all I'm doing is welcoming you and excusing you for beer, you're right. But I take all of my jobs very seriously, so I want to show you how seriously I prepared for today's event. I don't have a clicker, so there must be a clicker. This is how seriously I prepared. Oh, come on. Help! IT! One more. Up. Jen. Here she comes. Green shirt crew to the rescue. There we are. All right. I looked through so many AI comics to find the perfect AI comic kickoff for today's event. And I thought this one was just quintessential. Because this is like the storyboard of my life. Expectation versus reality. I mean, this is just a really great theme talking about life as a marketer, a business person, a mom, a wife. Everything in life is a balance between expectation and reality. And today, on the topic of AI, we're going to dive in on this big hype idea and work to separate hype from reality and actual application from idealism. And so I know we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot. I'm going to learn a lot. And this is a great comic to set the stage for today, but I also want to come back to just how seriously I take this job as MC, because last night I actually dreamed about this comic. No joke. I dreamed, how many of you have seen the Marketunists' work before? I just love it. Tom Fishburne, I find his work so relatable. So I dreamed that I was at a tour event for marketers, and we were at this super hip agency, all the exposed brick. And I was frenzied and running late, and it was crazy because I always am crazy in my dreams. And there was a keynote by Tom Fishburne, and I ran in just as he was concluding his keynote. And then he opened the floor for questions, and I stood up in my seat and I shouted, "Mr. Fishburne, I love your work. I'm sorry I missed your whole speech, but I am featuring your comic tomorrow at DenamiCON." And then he totally ignored me and said, "Next question, please." So I just woke up feeling really left out. But anyway, enough about me and how seriously I take this job. I do want to make some serious announcements for you about today's event. And I'm referring to my notes so I don't forget anybody, because it takes a small village to put on an event like this and get you all here. So first of all, I want to recognize and thank all the people who will be part of the speaker lineup today, including Paul Roetzer from PR 2020, who led a great workshop this morning, I heard, and it will be our keynoter and part of the panel today. Kristen Finley of Cicerone, Scott Littman of Equals3, and Josh Cutler of Aftercode, and Brendan facilitating that panel. I also want to recognize the people and the teams who make this event possible, including the fantastic hosts and organizers, the entire green shirt team from Denamico, led by Brendan and Kristen. I want to thank Surly for being excellent hosts. Maybe some of you are sticking around even after the networking to enjoy their outdoor patio. What a gorgeous day for it. Celerity, John's in the room, as a sponsor, and Modus, also sponsoring today. I want to thank Authentic Brand for emceeing today's event, but also for those of you who really love this topic, we did put together a virtual panel on the Authentic Brand website with all of the panelists with some of their thoughts around this topic. So that might be a great resource if you love what you hear today to share with others on your team. And finally, thanks to PR 2020 for the content they'll share on the keynote. Promise I'm almost done. All right, so just a really quick heads up that following today's content, there will be a break at some point between the keynote and the panel, and then following the content, there will be a Genius Bar where members from our host and our sponsor teams will be available to answer your questions one-on-one. So after you hit the beer bar, hit the Genius Bar. They've got great information for you as well as some swag that'll be fun to take home. And I think that's all I've got for announcements at this point, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to introduce our host, who will then introduce our keynote. So, I'm very happy to introduce you all to my friend and our host for today's DenamiCON, Brendan Denewell, CEO and co-founder of Denamico, a growth agency here in Minneapolis that helps businesses adapt to the new, more savvy consumer by creating and implementing a strategy-first approach to marketing. Once Denamico helps a client create the marketing plan, they then build their websites and create and run their content marketing plans, social media, and video marketing. Denamico is a gold HubSpot partner. They use HubSpot software platform to build out their clients' CRMs and marketing automation, set up and run customer service and sales content and automation. So really they bring it all together and activate a great marketing strategy for your growing business. And Brendan's super smart team, the green shirt crew, is here. They're all very visible, happy to answer any questions that you have throughout the day. So just grab them if you need help or you're looking for something in particular. So Brendan, without any further ado.
Thank you, Jennifer. And also, just one quick addition to the geniuses at the Genius Bar after. We actually are really happy to have Dan Vivian from HubSpot here today. So if you have any HubSpot related questions, he is the perfect guy to answer those at the Genius Bar after. So this is one of my two favorite work days of the year. The second one, of course, is DenamiCON in November 15th, if you want to put that on your calendars. For those of you who weren't here this morning, Jennifer already mentioned we had an incredible hackathon, which we've already had some incredible feedback on, so thank you, Paul, for that. And I gave a quick background this morning of myself, of where I was born and raised. What I didn't mention is it was not in Fridley. I grew up in Namibia, on the southwest coast of Africa, for those of you who weren't here this morning, amongst the giant sand dunes that are often over 1,000 feet tall. And like anyone who has something big to climb in their backyard, I love the challenge of climbing these imposing sand dunes, which is more difficult than you might imagine. For those that were at Hackathon this morning, I apologize, but I need to repeat one thing. Climbing those big sand dunes in the African desert taught me three valuable lessons. One, the fastest way to the top is not always the shortest way. Two, taking one small, steady step at a time is better than taking one big step in the wrong direction. And three, taking the longer route with smaller, steady steps leaves you with energy to come back and do it again the next day. Which is a lot like how we approach marketing and strategy at Denamico. At the core of our beliefs are three pillars. The customer is now in control. The customer has lots of questions, and we better have answers. And thirdly, someone on your team must own the customer journey from stranger through evangelist. All three of these pillars will be impacted by the increase in AI over the coming months and years. For that reason, we felt it was important to have this, our third DenamiCON, be a place to bring together folks in the Twin Cities who are excited and curious about AI, with some really smart folks who are paving the way for us in the world of artificial intelligence. The AI train is steaming down the tracks, and it isn't going to stop because we're all here together today, but we know there are others like ourselves who want to be part of that change and opportunities that will come. Marketing technology is evolving at an increasing velocity, and this is taking it to a level I can't even imagine. Today we're fortunate to have, as Jennifer said, Scott Littman of Equals3, the creators of Lucy, Kristen Findlay from Cicerone, Josh Cutler of Aftercode, creators of Ramble, and Paul. The four of you are here. We're here to be educated by the four of these. We'll hear more from Scott, Kristen, and Josh later in our panel. Paul is going to kick things off for us as the keynote speaker. Paul is the founder of the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute, author of 2 books, including the Marketing Performance Blueprint, creator of the Marketing Score and Marketing Agency Insider. Paul has consulted for hundreds of organizations, from startups to Fortune 500 companies. As a speaker, he is focused on making artificial intelligence approachable and actionable, and helping change agents drive transformation through marketing, talent, technology, and strategy. Please help me welcome Paul Roetzer.
So I've been giving talks on artificial intelligence for a few years now. Kind of became obsessed around 2011 when IBM Watson went on Jeopardy, and I told that story a little bit earlier to the hackathon workshop group. But at the time, basically I watched IBM Watson win, and I was very curious how that technology worked, and I wondered, could it be applied to marketing strategy? Could AI help predict what campaigns should be run based on probabilities of success? So it's kind of this grand vision, no comprehension whatsoever of what the tech actually did and if that was actually possible. It sort of set me down this path. And I started reading I read a book called Automate This by Christopher Steiner. It was the first book I read in 2012. And it talked about the disruption of industries with intelligent algorithms. It started with the story of Wall Street in 1987. A guy named Thomas Pefferty hacked NASDAQ, literally took the feed from NASDAQ, taught a machine how to read the data, and then eventually had to build a robot arm to punch into trades, because the NASDAQ body said you can't have a robot making trades, or you have to actually enter the trades. So he built a machine to enter the trades, taught it how to read the screen, taught it how to push the buttons. If you look at healthcare, logistics, retail, all these industries that were getting disrupted by intelligent automation, smart algorithms. And I looked at it at that time, again, still not really understanding what it was, and said, well, why not marketing and sales? Like, why wouldn't that inevitably come to us? And so the way Christopher Steiner positioned it, he said, each industry, you look at the potential to disrupt plus the reward for disruption. It was a rather simple equation to figure out when an industry would be disrupted. And so it started making a lot of sense in my mind. You look at where is the money? Well, it's on Wall Street. Then where's the money? Well, healthcare, then logistics, and you kind of go down the line, and somewhere down that line, marketing and sales eventually falls into the picture. And the reality was, there's only so many people in the world capable of actually building this artificial intelligence. So why would they build a marketing widget when they can take down Wall Street? Or why, So it makes sense now to be like, okay, this is logical. But then I started really going deep and reading and understanding AI going back to the 1950s and the US government's efforts to build intelligent machines and all these things that had kind of happened. And so the best visualization I've actually found is this. To try and give you an idea of where we are right now and where this can go. So this is from an author, Tim Urban, of Wait But Why. Any Wait But Why readers in the audience? Just amazing. If you don't read it, go subscribe. Once every 3 to 6 months he publishes something, but it'll make you think for the next 12 months. So he actually did a 2-part series on the AI revolution, and this was the first image that he had in that post. And the whole point is, when you look to the future, and if we apply this specifically to marketing and sales, our ability to predict what comes next is based on our linear ability as a human to think about what will happen based on what we currently know. We can't predict what will happen because we don't understand the technology that will come, that will enable whole new things. So a great example of this was New Year's Eve this past year, so December 31st, 2017. We were just sharing stories of toddlers. I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old, so my New Year's Eve is sitting at home with 2 toddlers, hoping they go to bed by like 9:30 so I can at least have a drink and enjoy the ball drop. And retweeting Bloomberg journalists. So this is a guy from Bloomberg, and it says things that didn't exist on New Year's Eve 10 years ago. So 2007, December 31st, 2007, you can kind of picture where you were. My agency was 2 years old at that point. So Instagram, Snapchat, Surrey, iPads, Bitcoin, WeChat, Facebook Messenger, Square, Google Chrome, Slack, all things that most of us probably interact with daily or have at least had some effect on what we do as marketers. My favorite is the last one, Find My iPhone. It's my favorite because the iPhone itself was 6 months old. So if you go back to June of 2007, Steve Jobs could not have predicted what the iPhone would have done in 10 years. So when we as marketers sit here and say, what's going to happen in 3 years, 5 years, anybody who tells you that they know what will happen within 5 years is full of it. They're just selling you futuristic stuff, which is fine. We have to all deal in the reality of what's actually going to be possible in the next 12 months to 36 months. Anything beyond that, you're just wasting your resources. So this is the reality of the future, and it's gonna move even faster. So the things we're gonna talk about today may blow your mind in some ways if you haven't been exposed to it before. I promise you it'll go far further than we're gonna talk about in the next 45 minutes. And AI is gonna fuel a lot of that change. So this is a quote from Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, and this was actually from an interview he did on MSNBC with Recode, was the blog. And he said, AI is one of the most important things humanity is working on. It's more profound than, I don't know, electricity or fire. And he's doubled down on this common sense. This wasn't just a one-off random thing he said. People who spend their lives working in AI and truly understand the power of it believe the impact would be greater than the advent of the internet itself or than the advent of electricity and fire. Like, it can truly change everything. The way we solve problems, big problems like cancer research and interplanetary travel, like things that we just can't comprehend. The human mind can't solve some of the most complex things in the world. Too much data is required, too much computing power. AI can. And so I spend a lot of my time not in marketing and sales, but in this world, like researching what these people are talking about, what the major leaders in AI are talking about, and I look at the implications of that, and then I come back to marketing, I'm like, why can't we solve this? Like, this is nothing, literally, compared to what they're trying to do at NASA, and what they're using AI for in other instances. It just becomes the matter of time until that technology trickles down. Now, that being said, it's kind of like very lofty and futuristic. What we're going to spend the rest of the time doing is going through the practical daily things that you're actually using AI for now and don't even know what's happening. So for me, while I started with this interest in AI in 2011, the true obsession started in March of 2015. So I was at South by Southwest, a conference in Austin. Anybody ever been to South by Southwest? It's massive, like 60, 70,000 people goes a week. It's crazy. It's professional spring break. If you ever want to have a good excuse to go out and like relive spring break as a 40 or 50-year-old, like go to South by Southwest. It's awesome. Business pays for it. So I sat in on a panel. It was the executive editor of the Associated Press and the CEO of a company called Automated Insights. And they told the story of how the Associated Press used to publish 300 earnings reports a quarter written by humans. So they take the data from the earnings reports, they write the story, publish it on the wire. They were at that moment now publishing 3,000 a quarter, 100% written by machines. And so I sat there like, wait, that's what we do. We're content strategists and producers. Are you telling me that machines at this stage can now actually create content? So I came back, and on the flight back, wrote up a brief for something we were internally calling Project Copy Scale. It was basically, we were going to figure this out. Like, has AI moved far enough that we can actually now do what we do with machines, and what is that going to do to the future of our industry? And why isn't anyone else talking about this? Like, this was crazy to me. So I'll come back and answer this in a bit. The answer was they weren't really actually using AI, but I'll explain how that all works in a minute. So what is artificial intelligence? Some of the panelists that'll be here in a little bit can give you their definitions. There's people who actually do these things, like build these things. I don't build anything when it comes to AI. There are people who build probably very strong opinions of the definition. If you Google right now, what is artificial intelligence, you will get 10 different definitions from 10 different experts. There's no agreement exactly what AI is, so don't worry about actually knowing the specific definition. This is my favorite, largely because of its simplicity. So Demis Hassabis was a child chess prodigy. At the age of 13, he was the #2 ranked chess player in the world. He eventually started a company called DeepMind, which got bought by Google in 2014 for about $600 million or so, based out of London. If you want to watch something that, again, I live in this stuff, and my mind was blown. I had to watch it twice. Watch a show called AlphaGo on Netflix. It's an hour-and-a-half long documentary of them building a machine called AlphaGo that beat the world champion of Go, Lee Sedol. So what IBM Watson did with Jeopardy was amazing at the time. Fascinating. Child's play compared to what they did with Go. It's the most complex game in the world. The machine learning experts at the time thought it would be a decade before anybody could teach a machine to win at Go. They did it a year later. And that's why I say when you look at like the future, nobody knows what's going to happen. So he defines it as the science of making machines smart. I would add to enhance and augment human knowledge and capabilities. We're going to talk a bit about this fear people have about being replaced, and is our machine just going to take over the world? No, they're not. They will take over pieces of things, but what it's going to do is it's going to enhance what you're capable of doing. It's going to fill gaps that you're not currently doing within your organization. So I'm not going to burden you with a bunch of definitions again, but just to level set so everyone kind of understands where we're at. So AI is this, I like to think of it as the umbrella term, the sum of all the tools and technologies to make machines smart. The most popular term related is machine learning. It's kind of a subset of AI. In a lot of cases, it's become synonymous with AI. People will use it and say machine learning, and it's AI, and AI is machine learning. Most commercial applications of AI today are using machine learning. Machine learning is largely designed to do prediction. It takes data and it predicts what will happen in the future or what should happen based on what happened in the past. And I'll go through and I'll show you practical examples. Deep learning is trying to teach a machine to think like a human, to do things like a human, like vision. Computers don't know the difference between a chair and the floor. They literally know nothing coming out. So they have to be trained to understand these things. And so they use what are called neural networks. They try and teach them to think like the human brain thinks. And again, this goes back decades. They've been trying to replicate the human brain. That's deep learning. There aren't that many commercial applications of it today, but those are the main terms. And then just a couple other things you'll hear, like natural language processing, natural language generation, natural language understanding. They're all just types of AI. If you leave today with a basic understanding of what's possible with AI, and you couldn't walk back up an hour and repeat to me any of these definitions, knowing what's possible is really the biggest goal of today. To start being curious about the fact that there are ways to do things more efficiently, to personalize things in new ways. So the most literal way I can explain this is if you're a marketer or sales and you use software, you tell the software what to do. So you're actually writing algorithms, you just don't know. If you use HubSpot and you set up an email workflow, you've written an algorithm that says a set of instructions that says do this if this happens. That's basically what marketing software is today. All the software you've ever used, a coder coded it to do something, gave it instructions, and then you as the marketer take it and you tell it what to do next. So the difference with AI is it can actually figure out things on its own. It can get smarter. It can go down paths you wouldn't have thought to go down. And it can adapt in real time to those things. So here's an example. With the event site, and I don't know what workflows you guys had set up, but let's say if someone registers for the event, send them a 3-part email. Someone built the software to enable that. Then the marketer went through and figured out what emails to send, what the subject lines will be, what the CTA is within it, what color images to use, what size images to use, when to send the emails, how many days to wait till all of that were rules set by the marketer. None of those should be done by humans. Those are all things machines can actually do better than humans right now with a collection of technologies. And here's why. If you want to figure out the 3 emails to send to one person, and you can look at their history, and they're a customer or they're not, they came to last year's event or they didn't, they've been to our site before or they haven't, there's all these variables that go into maximizing that one email you're going to send out. But now consider like if they came in through all these different channels and all these different histories you have of them. Impossible for the human mind to actually process this. Picture this at a 10,000 person event or a 60,000 person event. So what AI enables is things a human could do, but would never be able to do at the scale. And when you go back to that Associated Press example, it's not that a human couldn't write 3,000 earnings reports, they would never do it in under a minute, like the machine can do. So this is one of my favorite analogies that I actually just saw a couple weeks ago from an AI researcher at Google. It says, AI will help us make sense of an increasingly complex, information-intensive world in ways that wouldn't be possible with just our brains, much like telescopes and microscopes help us see the world in ways that wouldn't be possible with just human eyes. That's a lot of times what AI is doing. It's giving us the ability to all this data we have to make decisions as marketers. It's enabling you to see things in ways you would never ever see them otherwise. And the idea of the telescope or microscope to me is just the perfect way of understanding. You can just go much deeper and make sense of things. So to show you how often you're actually using AI, I'm going to give you a couple examples. Because I can tell you right now, you probably use it dozens, if not hundreds of times a day, and you don't actually know it's AI, and you don't care. That's what marketing is going to be. You won't even care you're using AI. Things are just going to all of a sudden work better. So for years, you've been able to upload a photo and it'd say, do you want to tag Keith in this photo? It's like, wow, how in the world did they know that's Keith? They're using computer vision, facial recognition. The same way your iPhone now opens, where it like reads your face and looks at things. About 3-4 months ago, you probably saw an alert on Facebook when you logged in and said, we're now using facial recognition to find you in photos. Every photo that's ever been uploaded to Facebook, they can now find you even if you weren't tagged in it. And unless you turn that off, they now know every photo you've ever been in. And they're using facial recognition. They taught algorithms to recognize faces and then assign it to a specific person. And that's how facial recognition works. Your iPhone, if you use Google Maps to get here, there's no human sitting there saying turn right, turn left, although there's an accident, stop. That's machine learning. It's learning what's happening. It's looking at what happened ahead of you and predicting the best route to now get you there fastest. RankBrain is Google's search algorithm that largely dictates what shows up now on search engines. If we go to the step of voice search, there's all kinds of AI enabling that. Again, a machine doesn't know human language. It doesn't understand voices. They're trained to understand voice and understand what's being said and extract what it is you're looking for and your intent based on that question and then provide you with a result. Really, really hard stuff that in 2000, it didn't happen. Like in Google, the only way to do it was this, and then how many inbound links did you have? And now there's all kinds of factors that go into it. Anybody ever use the smart replies feature in Gmail? You get in your app on your phone and down here's like 3-word recommendations, or on iMessages where you're like responding and it recommends, and like that's interesting, yeah, that's exactly what I want to say. Last year, I don't know how many now, but at the time Google had a team of 35 AI engineers working on this product. It was led by a guy named Ray Kurzweil. If you look up Ray Kurzweil, he's one of the foremost thought leaders in the AI space today. Guarantee you at that time, 35 engineers at Google aren't trying to figure out how to do 3 to 5 word replies in your email. What they're trying to do is understand human language and create it. And just 2 weeks ago, they introduced something called Smart Compose. Anybody see this? So sometime, probably in the next month or two, you're gonna all of a sudden when you're in Gmail on your desktop, it'll be completing sentences for you. Notice the subject line. Taco Tuesday, watch what the next sentence says. It's using the context of what was in that message, the subject line itself, to predict what they want to write about. So this will be in Gmail for personal use, and then it'll eventually come to G Suite, they said probably within the next few months. This is only the next step. The step beyond this is if you're in Google Docs, and you want to write something in Google Docs, and it can now look at the subject of the document, or it knows what folder it's saved in, or it knows the last time you created something, what you previously wrote. Everything you've ever written, it knows, and it never stops learning. And every time you say yes or no, let it finish the sentence, you just taught the machine. So this is AI in process. You are training a machine to make it smarter. And every time you do something, it gets smarter, and it never, ever sleeps. So what they want to do is be able to write entire paragraphs, entire documents. That's why there's 35 engineers at Google working on language. And then they want to be able to have, did anybody see Google Duplex? What happened there? So they've made massive leaps forward in the recreation of human voice to where you can't actually distinguish between the machine voice and a human voice, which was really, really hard to solve. And then they built, using different algorithms, kind of a really massive branching logic where they demonstrated on stage the machine calling a hair salon to make an appointment, and the person at the salon didn't know it was a machine they were talking to. They scheduled the appointment. Then they showed one where they called a Chinese restaurant to schedule dinner for that night. And immediately the machine was thrown off because it said a table for 7, and they said, oh, you want a table on May 7th. And the machine actually had to adapt to the conversation. People in the crowd were blown away. These are all developers, like people who know what's going on. So again, like the things that are coming are so much further than the examples I'm going to show you today, but I show it to you so you understand this is preschool stuff, what we're seeing right now. And there's things that have been done since the 1990s. Like the US government spent over 19 billion publicly known dollars in 2016 on AI. That's probably a tenth of what was actually spent on it. So, not to scare everybody. Netflix, 70% of what people watch on Netflix comes from some sort of AI algorithm, a recommendation. So recommendations are a huge piece of machine learning. Again, predicting what you would want to watch next based on what you've previously watched and what people like you have watched. So they try and surface things to you. Washington Post, it's owned by Jeff Bezos. Like when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post, like, why is Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post? Like I didn't understand it. Now I get it. So in 2016, I interviewed Dr. Sam Hahn, who's the director of data science at the Washington Post. He was telling stories about things they're doing with AI that are just insane. Like the way they surface different headlines based on who you are and what you've previously read, the way they decide what to write about. They write their high school sports stories using natural language generation. Like their election coverage in 2016, their Olympics coverage in 2016, it was all done by machines. And so I look at this, and now you start getting much, much closer to marketing. It's like, wait a second. So if you have enough money and enough technology and capabilities, you can actually start building things to do things that are real similar. Like I need to recommend ebooks based on what ebooks someone already read, or products based on what products someone bought. Like those are things I do every day. And obviously Amazon is all about prediction of what you're going to buy next based on what you've previously bought. So this is actually my homepage a few months ago. And you can see they seem to know me pretty well. There's marketing recommendations, AI recommendations, kids things. And then this is one of my favorites because it's a very practical example to show you how machines actually see things. Anybody in the room lucky enough to drive a Tesla has probably used the autopilot feature, at least familiar with the autopilot feature. There's no such thing as a fully autonomous vehicle, probably won't be for a while. But they have partial autonomy, meaning in some conditions, the car can drive itself. The way it does it, it doesn't actually see what we see. Again, it doesn't know a human from a telephone pole, or at least it didn't, but you teach it to. And so it's using computer vision, and so this is showing what the machine sees: motion flow, lane lines, road flow, in-path objects, road lights, objects, road signs. And it's seeing things, not like you and I, but as boxes, as color-coded boxes that tells it, don't go here, go there. If you have to swerve here, that's a telephone pole, that's a person, hit the telephone pole. It has to make these decisions. Again, very, very hard. We were talking about toddlers and driving, and my daughter's 6. I don't believe she'll ever have a driver's license. I don't think she'll ever need a driver's license. Now, we won't have every road in the US won't be fully autonomous vehicles everywhere, but it can be if you choose it to be. Like, laws have to catch up in things, but the technology will be there. And so things like this is what actually enables that. And computer vision is used in all kinds of interesting scenarios. Not a ton in marketing yet, but again, it can come. So the whole point of this is your life is machine assisted. There's AI everywhere in your life, and it's just going to get more prevalent. Your marketing will be too. You could leave here today and be like, that was insane, that guy's crazy, I am never researching AI again. I don't want to hear the term AI. I'm sorry, it's with you forever now. But in 3 to 5 years, you probably won't hear the term AI as much. It's literally like, if there is a software product on the market you use to do your job, and it is not powered by AI throughout the whole thing, it won't exist in 5 years. And ignore what I said earlier about people who can't predict things after 3 years. Trust me on this one. Like, it has to be powered by AI, because so much of what we do in marketing and sales requires data to do it, which means a machine can excel at it. Things that are easy for humans are hard for machines, and vice versa. Take a toddler, show them a dog and a cat at the age of 1. They will never in their life mistake a dog for a cat or a cat for a dog. They will understand what that means. You have to show a machine 3 million images of a cat, 3 million images of a dog before it recognizes that now breeds is a whole different story. So again, easy for human, really, really hard for machine. Give a machine a terabyte of data and ask it to find patterns, done, that afternoon. Give it to a human, they're gonna give it back to you a day later and say, sorry, I quit. So because of all this, this is what we created. So I do run an agency by day. I should spend all of my time on the agency, but I don't, because I obviously have a slight interest in this. And I do think it will dramatically change the future of what we do as marketers. I believe it'll change the future of what we do as an agency. I've said before, and I'll say it to you guys, I think that at least 80% of what we do every day will be intelligently automated, not fully, but to some large degree within 3 to 5 years. So I'm trying to figure out the future, and one, selfishly, because I'm not sure what we're going to do 3 to 5 years from now as an agency that a machine can't do better. And bigger picture, I think it's going to just change everything. for the industry and for society. So we just started writing about AI. We started researching it, because again, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand a framework to think about it in. I didn't, like, all these vendors were now slapping AI in their name or in their position. It's like, we use machine learning and blah, blah, blah to do this thing. I was like, I don't know what that means. And you're one of 10 people that told me to use machine learning today. Like, is yours actually smart? Is theirs not? I didn't know. So we just basically did a massive research project that we made available to the public. The best way I knew to do this was go talk to the smart people. Go talk to the geeks that actually build this stuff. No offense, you guys built this stuff. But talk to the people who actually understood it. And so what we did is we asked the same 8 questions of all these companies. How are you using AI? What's its limitations? What's its potential? What are the most obvious use cases for it? How is what you do with AI different than what I could do with traditional software? Every time they answered those questions, we learned. And we started understanding the market better and started developing an ability to put a framework to it. And like anything in business, there's always this general rule that usually is pretty true: follow the money. This is a small sampling of the money pouring into this space. Like, I've heard this joke, like slap.ai at the end of your URL and you get 3 times the valuation. It's probably not actually that far off. So like Drift just raised, I think, 60 million last month. There's another one on here that just raised like 40 million. I mean, the money is literally just pouring into this space. We've done 38 of these spotlights combined. They have close to 900 million in funding, just those 38 companies. We're tracking over 700 that have combined about 4 billion, give or take a few. So there is no lack of technology companies in the space. But again, we couldn't understand them all. So we're interviewing all these companies and like, well, I don't get it though. Like, where do you start? Like, how do I actually figure out which ones of these to use? So like anything else, we needed to kind of devise a framework to understand this. So we created this 5 Ps of AI. And we basically started breaking use cases into these areas. Now, the thing to understand about AI is like what you see in, I say Ex Machina, I think somebody corrected me, says Ex Machina, or however you say the name of that movie, also awesome, go watch it. That doesn't exist. Like general intelligence, sentient beings that are able to like process things like humans, and not possible, probably not possible for a long time. So people have this misconception of AI because what they see in Hollywood they think can actually happen, and it can't. What happens is you build AI to do very specific narrow tasks, what we call use cases. So it's trained to do one simple thing, and then it can do those things. So you can't just leave here and go say, well, I'm gonna go buy an AI platform and retire, and like just let it do everything for me. There is no AI platform. There's nothing that does all this stuff for you. So in the planning phase, you basically have to think about every individual thing as a use case. You have to say to yourself, how much time do I spend on a task? You can literally make a list of all the things you do every day and then figure out how much time goes into it. So let's say analyzing existing content. If you were to say, okay, what's the best stuff we published the last 2 years? Think to yourself, how would I figure that out? Like maybe you go into HubSpot and you do a search, and maybe you go into BuzzSumo and export a database, and then you give it to the intern and say, can you go through this and filter it by this column, this column, this column, and then write me a brief that tells me the most popular ones on these different, it's like, you could do it, but it would take different steps. This does it automatically. It literally just ingests everything on the site, it surfaces for you different things, it spits out narratives to tell you. So Concurred is a company that does this. And I'm just gonna give you names. These aren't for any specific reason other than these are use cases that might be applicable. Capturing competitive intelligence. There are some things that you do every day that like that would be amazing if a machine did that for me. And then there's other things that you just don't do. But if something could do it for you at almost no cost, you would totally do it. This probably falls in that arena. So what CRAN enables you to do is monitor the digital footprint of any brand you want, any domain on the internet. And it'll tell you anytime something changes. They hired a new executive, they launched a new product, they made a change on their pricing page, they altered their landing page, they launched a new campaign. So if there are brands that you either want to learn from or that you do see as competition, you can just put the domain in and it'll not only monitor for you, it'll write the reports for you, and it'll just send you, here's the narrative of what happened. So it's using different types of AI to do this. Another is Pathmatics. So if you do digital advertising and you want to know what your competitors are spending, not only will tell you what they're spending, how many impressions they created, and show you all the creative, it'll actually tell you the ad networks they went through to buy the creative and which site's it on. You can download, you can export a CSV that shows you every site your competitor is advertising on, how much they spent on the site, how many impressions they created. You don't actually care how they do it. All you care is like, wow, this is amazingly powerful information. Choosing keywords and topic clusters, so any HubSpot users know the move HubSpot's made kind of away from specific keywords, more towards this idea of topic clusters. So they're using machine learning to do different things within this. Surfacing high value content, again, instead of you having to make the effort once a month to go, look, what if you just log into your dashboard and it just tells you, like, this thing is really doing well, do this, this, and this. It'll actually recommend things to do to improve it. Production gets into that content creation phase. So this one is one of my favorite. If you're at a big enterprise, this is a viable solution for you. Small businesses, this wouldn't be price point wise, wouldn't be logical for you. But what Acrolinks does is the founder is a PhD in computational linguistics, which don't ask me to tell you what that exactly that means. I didn't even know it was a thing until like a year ago. But it means he's really smart and good with language. So they built something that, anybody use Grammarly, like the little Chrome extension? Okay, so Grammarly raised $100 million last year. It is not to check AP style on your Word docs, trust me. So what these guys did is you can actually train the AI to edit your content across a team of thousands of writers and 6 languages. And not just tone, sentiment, style. You can teach it exactly how you want your brand to sound. And then it'll correct them on the fly. It'll give them a score and saying you're not on brand, like this is off brand, here's how you should change it. You can customize and train it based on geography to use different phrases for different things. So something in Germany may be said differently than something in the US. It'll do that. It is like, again, never sleeps. It can lay over anywhere you create content, and it can give you a score as you're going. And every time you accept or reject or you make a change, you've trained the machine now and it doesn't forget. This is a really literal one that I think also helps understand how AI works. So what happens in machine learning is you train models. And so in this case, this company, Clarify, trained a model to recognize apparel, clothing, accessories, fashion-related items. So if you have a website with 1,000 apparel photos, the only way you would previously make those indexable and searchable within the site is to tag them. Have a human go through and say, this is a turtleneck, this is this, this is this. You can install this on the site, it'll read every image on your site and instantaneously predict what is in that photo. So again, the machine doesn't know this is a turtleneck. Does it? Okay. It doesn't know, like me, what clothing is. So in this case, turtleneck, 97% probability that's a turtleneck. It is a 37% probability it's a tube top. Go back to, again, remember how I said IBM Watson worked on Jeopardy. It didn't know the answer. It knew probabilities that the answer was correct based on its training. And then you set confidence levels. You say if you're more than 93% confident, then surface that as a tag. And so this can be done to any image. If you go into your phone right now, if you have an iPhone and you look in photos, and you've never done this before, search for something. Think back 10 years ago or 7 years ago, whenever you have photos from, think of an image, a basketball or a beach, whatever. It will instantaneously find every photo, and you could have 30,000 of them like me. It'll instantaneously find that photo and surface it for you in under a second. That's using this technology. Another one that people really love because it's so literal, and we all do this every day, is email subject line writing. So Phrasee claims they will write email subject lines that outperform human written subject lines 98% of the time. They actually had a live webinar yesterday, it was like human versus machine, and it was comparing. So now, like a lot of AI, this requires about 100,000 emails as a training model. So it needs to be able to process and the performance of those emails to learn from them to then predict what you want to write. But they're using stuff similar to what we saw with that Smart Compose, where it's actually trying to predict what's going to work best. Personalization is where a lot of money has gone. This is, again, it's trying to Amazonification of marketing. It's trying to personalize the experience for the consumer. So you do hear a lot about chatbots these days. Most chatbots are not using AI. It's kind of like I don't know, it benefits the companies for you to not know that, but most of them are actually still human written instructions. The bot has the capability in some cases to be AI driven, like Drift has a paid version that will actually interpret questions and surface recommendations that is using types of AI, but the starter version for most people when they use bots doesn't mean it's actually using AI. You actually just create a branching logic that tells it what to say. Optimizing email send time. So if you have a database of 10,000 emails that's going to go out in the newsletter, and you say, let's send it Thursday at 2 because MailChimp 3 years ago published a report that says Thursday at 2 is a great time to send emails, which, to be honest, that's like how we all decide when to publish social shares and emails. This will actually learn all 10,000 individuals, and it'll find the time that they're most likely to open it. It'll consider time zones, it'll consider all their past open rates, and it may actually decide to send me the emails 10 o'clock on Saturdays, because it has somehow learned that's when I'm going to do my emails. Salesforce has spent billions, literally, buying up AI companies and merging them into something called Einstein, which is a layer that sits over their CRM and does all kinds of intelligent things like personalizing experiences for people based on their past behavior. And then a really tangible one for people is surfacing recommended content. Like right now, again, if someone downloaded an ebook or registered an event, then show them this ebook. Well, what if they already downloaded that one? Well, should I gotta go in and set a rule that says, okay, maybe if they already done, and now all of a sudden you have this branching logic that's like this and you can't even comprehend it. This learns on the fly. And so they enable you to actually let the machine read all the content on your site and then learn from analytics which performs best and which are related, and kind of cluster those things together and then recommend them based on behaviors. Promotion, this is one of the furthest along I've seen. So I like to think of things in AI space like autonomous vehicles, and there's a level of autonomy that goes from 0 to 5, 5 being fully autonomous, 1 being sometimes. And so I actually evaluate AI vendors the same way. The most advanced on the market I've seen is maybe a 3, and that's pushing it. Most of them are more in the 2 range. Like sometimes it can be intelligent automated, but still requires input and oversight from humans. This on the surface actually seems as far along as any technology I've seen. What you do here is if you have $20,000 a month to spend on digital media, it used to be 10,000, now it's 20K. You upload the creative. So you say, here's 3 different subject lines, here's 3 different images, here's 3 different sets of body copy. I want to spend $1,000 a day. Go to work. And then you sit back and you watch. And the machine actually runs alterations. It mix and matches the creative. It puts money into Facebook, money into AdWords, money into wherever you tell which channels you pick. And then while you're sleeping, it actually may alter it. And you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden all your money's on Facebook and it's running these 3 creatives. Because it learned. Now it doesn't happen that fast. It often is like 3 to 6 months of training needed, but it is trying to make digital media buying autonomous. A/B testing, I joked earlier, I think in the hackathon we talked about this, like people ask, well, we'd be out of jobs. And I would say like, if you A/B test for a living, like this is literally all you do, yes. Like start now finding another career path because humans shouldn't do that. Like no human should be picking, should the button be orange or green. It is just not a good use of human brain power because it's going to be the wrong answer no matter what. It should actually evolve and show a different color to each human that interacts with it down the line if possible. Publishing social shares, this is Cortex. Again, I cannot attest that this works as promised, but what it's proposing to do is a perfect example of how this all can work to your benefit. So if you go to publish something on social media, again, if you do social media, you do this all the time. Okay, what are we going to write about this time? What worked last time? How many clicks did we get? How many retweets? Which was the most engaging? Okay, let's start there. Let's reshare those. Let's change this word. Let's put this hashtag. Wait, let's change the hashtag. What images? What color? All of those things should be done by machine. Every single one of them. And so what they're claiming to be able to do is take and recommend what you should be sharing, what time it should go out based on engagement of that specific channel. Again, not a 2-year-old report that said Tuesdays at 10 is the best time to send a share. It should recommend images and ideally select them for you and put it in there and you just say yes or no. Like that's the best way I can explain what AI should do is the human layer should be a yes/no layer. Like I agree, do it. I don't agree, don't do that. Let's try again. So that's kind of where this should go. And then performance it's the earliest. This is hard, this is real hard. So there's a number of companies that have been trying to do this for a while. If you think about Google Analytics and all the insights you could surface out of it every month, there's a lot. Then go to the level of prescribing what to do based on that data. That's where the real challenge lies. Predicting things, I don't know if easy is the right term, but predicting things is what machine learning does. Prescribing actions is very, very difficult. So these guys try and do that. So again, these are starting points. Like if you're interested in a use case, like go check these companies out as samples. There's a couple other players in this space, but they're trying to take your analytics, create a narrative for you, and then do it. We use a different tool to do our Google Analytics reports every month, and we went from about 6 to 8 hours per client per month to about 30 to 45 minutes, because the machine actually writes the narrative for us. And then the marketer looks at the insights, like those all make a lot of sense, edits a couple things, adds a few recommendations, done. Better than what we were doing in 6 to 8 hours, we do in 45 minutes. And then this is kind of where it's going, being able to ask questions. So GrowthBot was Dharmesh Shah at HubSpot, the co-founder. This was his pet project for a while. I think it's getting integrated into HubSpot, like this capabilities more and more built in. But to just ask a question, like how was our traffic in New York that last month? Or what was our best campaign last month? And have it spit it out for you. So you don't have to go looking for anything, it's just surfacing insights. And to give you an idea of how important this is, Google Analytics last summer released Ask Analytics, similar thing. So again, a quick hack where you don't actually care it's AI or have to know how to use AI. They're using AI for you. Just make a list of the 5 or 10 things you want to know every month and just sit there and ask Google each month the same question. Copy and paste it, put it in, what is it? There's your report. So I'm going to end with kind of 3 things to know, 3 things to get started, and then I think we're going to take a break and then come back to the panel. It's really, really early. You guys literally are ahead of 99.9% of the market, having sat here for 40 minutes and just knowing the basics of this stuff. Like, I'm not even joking on that. All the tech companies are really early too. Like, even some of the most promising, like I look at the site and I talk to them, like, man, I'm really geeked about this company. Do you guys have any case studies you can send me? No, I don't have any case studies yet. Can I see a demo of what you're explaining to? It's not actually ready for demo yet. It'll be like 3 months from now. So do you actually use AI yet? Like, do you just change your positioning because people are looking for AI? Yeah, that's kind of what we did. Okay, so ask tough questions. Like, they all sound really good, and I think they all have a lot of potential, or some of them have a lot of potential. Many of them have not proven that it actually works, and they can't scale it yet. If you're middle market to enterprise, most use cases for AI, not all, but most, require a lot of data, a lot of training. And it can be structured, meaning it exists nicely in rows and columns, and ideally it's nice and cleansed. Unstructured, meaning it doesn't exist in rows and columns. It's Word docs, social media shares, emails, things that are unstructured. Both of those can be used to build intelligent systems, but ideally you have a lot of it. And the thing you're trying to achieve, the more data you have to train the models, the better off you're going to be. Good news, though, is there is a large effort to sort of democratize AI, to make intelligent algorithms open to the public to build on. Now, there are selfish interests from Google and Amazon and Facebook to enable these things, because every time you use their models, you're actually training them. So the more people that use them, the more training they get at mass market. Again, the example of Gmail, you're training Gmail every time you use it. So these things are being opened up and available. The challenge is finding people who know what to do to actually build these things. I've seen stats that say there's like 10,000 AI researchers in the world, starting salaries in like $250,000 and above sometimes. So that it's really hard to find people interested in solving marketing problems that might want to come into it. So the steps to get started, I always look at like if you work in media relations or SEO or email, like you may work in a silo and just do one thing, and that's awesome. Think about all the things you do every day doing that thing, and then assume AI could probably intelligently automate a piece of it, make you a little bit more efficient, incrementally more efficient. And then go try and find those things, but start by making that list. Then think about your data. And again, if you're a big organization, I heard a stat at a conference last month that 99% of data in most organizations is dark. I mean, like not even looking at it, we're not using it, it's not informing anything. Most organizations have latent data just sitting around that could be used to do something more intelligent. And so look at that data, or find somebody who knows what they're looking at that can look at the data and maybe find ways to use it. And then the last, and maybe the best, is start with the existing core tech stack. Like, because you build AI in use cases, you could literally be talking about adding dozens of vendors to your tech stack if you wanted the AI to do each thing. You're much better off going to HubSpot or Salesforce or Adobe or Oracle or whoever you use and saying, do you have more intelligent ways to do this? Are you guys using technology that would enable us to, I heard this machine learning term, are you using it, like, you don't have to know what it means, just like, they'll know what that means. And then maybe I'll say, like, actually, we're working on something like this, or we just launched this, it's an extra $200 a month, but we can turn it on for you tomorrow. it's the most efficient way to go is talk to your platform companies first. So finish with, are we going to replace? No. Like this I can confidently tell you, like it's just not going to happen. More than anything, we're going to find ways to work. And when we say machine, you do think of like Terminator and these robots on, I just started watching Lost in Space, which is pretty cool on Netflix, like cool. So like that's not the machine I'm talking about. I'm talking about intelligent algorithms that like make things smarter. So it's going to enhance your knowledge and capabilities, and the people that take the initiative to just learn a little. There's so many amazing free training videos online. Google launched Learn AI with Google 2 months ago. Watch the 11-minute video how they think about machine learning. Like it changes your perspective so much when you see these practical examples. And theirs was, I think the way they actually showed it was what kind of beer it was. Like they taught a model to understand what beer it was. So it's like really practical and relevant to today. And start with a single use case. Find that one pain point, the thing that would be most valuable to you to do intelligently, more intelligently, and go from there. So I don't know. We have time for a few questions if we want to. I don't know what time we're going to break.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys. I'm here for 3 hours either way.
Anyone have any questions?
Or just scared they're just going to go drink.
You can also say them for the panel after if you like.
Yeah.
So you said most people don't have it figured out yet.
Yeah.
In your guess, how long till they have it figured out and tested improvement?
Define figured out.
Enough that you could justify it on an expense sheet.
I will tell you, we get a lot of phone calls from really large companies, think like Fortune 50s, who are just trying to figure out how to pilot a single AI use case. So if you look at any movement in marketing that we slapped a name on, like inbound or content or account-based marketing or whatever we wanted to call marketing to differentiate it, go 3 to 5 years before that became a thing. Like it's that early. So I think if the big enterprises, and I'm talking like massive organizations that operationally have been doing AI for a dozen years, like have shifted their entire organizations to the AI first within the operations, their marketing teams aren't using AI yet, knowingly. Like consciously going and finding AI tools to do things. So when you look at small business to middle market, again, predicting beyond 3 is crazy, but I'm pretty confident we're looking at a decade of this being a really big thing. And then again, it's just when the software becomes so smart that it's not a thing anymore. Like it just, all of a sudden things just work smarter. But knowing what some of these platform companies are doing, like they're early. Like the companies that should be building this stuff in, it's still not proven within there, and they're still dabbling in some cases. Like people like Adobe and Salesforce and Oracle, like they put billions into doing this, but even then it's not really working that great yet. Even IBM Watson isn't that far along in marketing applications. There are, like I know Equals3 is here, and there's an ecosystem of people who've taken that technology and made really amazing things possible, and that works. But IBM Watson as a whole, like that they went into healthcare and they went into other major areas where they put a lot of their engineering resources on solving big problems and let the ecosystem solve the smaller marketing and sales problems. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what year that was, like 14, I think, maybe when IBM Watson opened up as a platform, and that did accelerate some innovation in our space. But I would say it's still in pockets where the innovation's happening. So I think we got quite a runway ahead of us.
I think we'll probably be,
yeah, we'll get into a lot.
I'll be covering some more questions during the panel, and then if anyone has any more, we can cover them then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. That was fascinating and inspiring. Only just a tiny bit scary. Just a tiny bit. I have 2 key takeaways. One is that I wish my kids were 10 years younger, so I had the hope of them having safe autonomous vehicles to drive them around, because I have a 15-year-old. It scares me to death, but she's going to need a driver's license. And secondly, I hear in here hope that at some point in my marketing lifetime, we will be able to break out of this mind-boggling process of extracting data from 15 different places and running it through Excel spreadsheets to try to get to conclusions that help us make good decisions. And a lot of that is starting to happen, and I think we're going to hear more about progress toward that end in the panel. There will be a break now, and then I think you might even hear some music to cue you to come back to the room, because I know whenever you let people go on a break when there's beer, it's hard to bring them back. Please come back. We're not done with this great conversation, but as you go on break, there's one more thing I want you to be aware of. The Denamico team is going to be sending an email which may have already gone out. Yes, I'm seeing nods. So if you were to look in your inbox, you may have an email from Denamico already, inviting you, if you'd like to fill out a form. If you get that form done between now and tomorrow morning, you will, I'm reading my notes so I don't get this wrong, you'll receive a free website audit and the chance to win a marketing assessment valued at $2,500. So don't miss that chance. And then secondly, on Friday, you'll be receiving a request for your feedback through a survey of this event. All of those of you who return that survey with your feedback will be entered for the chance to win a copy of Paul's book. I believe the book for giveaway is the Marketing Performance Blueprint. Based on what I heard from Paul today, I'm definitely interested in reading that book. And I hope what you're learning today is going to spin up a lot of great conversation for our networking afterward. But take a refreshment break, come back, and we'll keep rolling. Thank you.